And and welcome back. Can't do this with my microphone. And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode number 148. Okay, new setup here. We got OBS back. We're going to have a ring light. It's like, this is high definition here and very unjanky, although we still managed to find jankiness in this situation because I can't do my signature finger point. Anywho, welcome back to Year of the Aerostar, episode number 148. Here on Janky AF, we're trying to make strides and keep marching on our wonderful trajectory of Aerostar documentation as well as marketplace culture analysis. So without further ado, why don't we get right into it? Okay, here we have a 1993 Ford Aerostar XLT minivan listed for $3,600 in Lake Ariel, Pennsylvania. Lake Ariel, that sounds like a very lovely place, doesn't it? Pennsylvania, an interesting state. Neighbors of us New Yorkers. And a lot of, interesting things have come out of Pennsylvania. The band Ween is from Pennsylvania. And we've seen quite a few good Aerostars in Pennsylvania. So shout out to Pennsylvania and Lake Ariel in particular. Okay. About this vehicle, driven 85,000 miles. The exterior color is red. The interior color is gray. Obviously, this is a two-tone Aerostar. 2 owners, a clean title, automatic transmission. The fuel type is gasoline, and the vehicle is paid off. Okay, seller's description. Listing for a family member. Motivated seller! Exclamation point. You don't say. 1993 Ford Aerostar. That's funny. They misspelled. I'm guessing they didn't mean to spell it like this. But there's been, when I do captions on these videos, I try to do closed captions for hearing impaired, and a lot of times the captions, and I'm not a big user of AI, but I presume that there's some sort of AI technology. Although maybe caption voice to speech actually predates AI. I don't know. I suppose it's some sort of AI. I digress. Anyways, a lot of times it will hear Aerostar and it will write out Aero, ARROW, space star. But I think it's learning maybe that it's starting to correct it and actually say Aerostar as it learns what that verb or that word is in the vocabulary. Anyways, this is Aerostar. A lot of people say the Chevy Astro, they'll combine Astro and Aerostar. They'll say Astrostar, the Ford Aerostar. People often conflate the Aerostar with the Astro. So it's funny because if you just flip the E and the R, it becomes Aerostar, which kind of sounds nice. An Aerostar, an Aerostar. It still works, phonetically. Anyway, 1993 Ford Aerostar, 2.9 V6 4x4. Okay, well, right off the bat, we know any Aerostar sleuths out there know. Even casual Aerostar sleuths know that if it's a 4x4, which it looks like it is the electronic four-wheel drive based on this picture, then it, of course, has to be the 4-liter. Now, what's interesting is that the 2.3 liter is the 4-cylinder, and then there was the 2.8 liter, and of course the 3 liter. Now, I do think the 2.8, which I believe was the Cologne, I think did get, correct me if I'm wrong out there, Ford enthusiasts, I think did get bumped up to 2.9 in some Rangers. Wasn't there a 2.9 that was, still the Cologne? I think the Cologne went all the way up to 4.0. In fact, the 4.0 may also be a Cologne V6. So I suppose if they had gotten a 2.9 from a Ranger, although I don't know if anyone's ever hooked that one up to the, with your transfer case and all that, I can't imagine it's like a bolt-on setup. So where they got 2.9 from is very interesting because if it was a 3 liter, you could be confused. Oh, they made the 3 and the 4, and you wouldn't know that the 4 wheel, the electronic 4-wheel drive only came with the 4-liter, and it could have been easily mistaken, think it was a 3-liter, but a 2.9, that's very interesting. The fact that they even list the displacement, you'd think it would just say V6 4x4. That's about as in-depth as we're getting here. So anyways, very strange. Maybe that's an AI thing. AI just told them it was 2.9 liter. Who knows? Very interesting how these things, it seems like it would be so straightforward, and I'm not casting shade or anything like that, but it's just funny. It's like the game Telephone. It's like it's very difficult to have information be totally accurate and certain in anything. This is just like a used car listing for a 1993 minivan on a classifieds website. This isn't very important in the grand scheme of things to be accurate. You remember when they bounced that? You remember when they sent that thing to Mars, and they forgot to calculate from SAE to metric, and so they overshot the planet and just smashed the thing into it was like $6 billion or whatever. That's just like, because they forgot to translate. So humans are very fallible. It's very funny. Anywho, I believe this is probably the 4-liter and not the 2.9 liter. 85k miles, really low mileage for for these vans once you realize how up in years they're getting relative to a new vehicle. I mean, you can do the math if you'd like, but that's a pretty low average mileage per year over the course of this vehicle. Runs great, very clean interior. Rockers have been patched, just need some primer and paint to make it look nice. 3,600 or best offer. So this has been listed for 3 weeks now, and they are a motivated seller with an exclamation point. So you would think they'd probably be down to negotiate at this point. And while I don't think $3,600 is a bad price at all, because we've seen what all-wheel drive Aerostars will bring a trailer. These little, this is an interesting case study because, as we'll see in these pictures, and nice job putting a lot of pictures in here. Here's our obligatory mileage shot with 84,934. And then I will say the interior is quite nice, and this presents very nicely. Now it's got this great gray and red two-tone, which matches perfectly the exterior of gray and red. I think aesthetically, this is the tri-tone. It's a two-tone, but it's like a sandwich of color in the middle instead of just, instead of your line being right here, and then the entire color going all the way up. You have this like sandwich of color, which is nice. It's a very 90s thing, and there was just so many different color variations and combinations made between like the sandwich, the regular two-tone, the monotone. The sandwich Aerostars, again, it'd be nice to have one. I kind of like how the color does just fall just short of the windows. It just gives it, and the fact that it curves around and wraps to meet the where your hood meets your cowl, just a very, it shows off the contours and lines of the Aerostar in just a little slightly different way than either a monochromatic or a normal two-tone vehicle. And I do like how this line they put in corresponds with your bumper, so it makes those gray bumpers look even more intentional. The thing I'll say about this Aerostar that has it going against it, it's just got a lot of little things going on in the exterior where it's like a little, ding here. The bumpers are kind of janky, as we'll see. I mean, credit to the sellers who actually went through and did this patching on the rockers. Now, it doesn't look like maybe the most professional job ever. I don't know what's going on here. Is that just fading paint, or is that just or is that some other damage? And then we have the rocker repair with some. They probably could have cut more out, but it seems like they got the majority of it. Maybe that bubbling could be sanded down. This whole thing could be sanded down and painted. I understand on a vehicle of this age, this condition, you're not going to do like this, amazing restoration job. So the fact that they've patched the rockers at all with metal and not Bondo is already a testament to, the care they've taken this vehicle. You got some scratches, you got some dings, you got some paint fade. The badges are faded. We'll look at the interior again. Now, I wanted to skip over it just to address the outside. And what I'm getting at here, really nice. I mean, you got to call this like probably an 8 out of 10, if not 8.5, maybe even a 9. Like, when you see a cream puff, a true cream puff that you can just tell has been garaged and not really used that much, to get from a 9 to a 10 is a big jump. To get to that mint condition is really, really rare. But this is very nice condition. I mean, it's also, once you start getting into the 3s and the 4s, it's not irredeemable, but like you're never going to be able to restore it to get into a condition. I've talked about this on this program before. The interior of a vehicle, I think, is harder to, on a vehicle like this, where if you're trying to get original parts, original materials, original seats, it's going to be harder to restore than the outside, because the outside you can always make it look new, even if it is a respray or whatever. But the interior you can't ever really make look new again. So that's like a really tough thing. Now you do have I can tell this foam, I think, in this seat is probably a little bit soft. It's a little bit baggy. You have a little bit extra space going in there. It's not super taut, but that's a very nitpicky thing. I do think the interior of this vehicle is fantastic. I love a gray interior, and just this little extra bit of red piping again on your door card. It has these beautiful like leather or leatherette little pockets sewn in. I really think the interior of this vehicle for its time was such a high bar of quality. I mean, yes, you have cloth, yes, you have plastic. Everyone bemoans plastic, but everything in the world is plastic now. I mean, you buy a $50,000 Subaru and half the car is plastic. So I don't really, I think like, yes, it's plastic, but it's the overall presentation and how everything finishes off and the aesthetic look and the feel of it. Extremely comfortable seats. Your ride height's amazing. A really good quality armrest that, you can have one hand on your armrest and the other hand on your door sill, and you can just be sort of like driving with your, just your thumb and your pointer fingers, and it's just such a comfortable vehicle to drive in. The just the effort that went into the aesthetics of these seats, with the piping, with the 2 different fabrics. I just think there's so much attention to detail. Okay, let's look at back. A little chip in the bumper. This is such a iconic Aerostar thing. I would say 50% of Aerostars have this thing here, and it's always on the passenger side, not the driver's side, because it's a blind spot and people would back into things. My brown one has it. And I can't remember if my green one has it, but it's such a common thing. It's such a funny little quirk. It's almost like a badge of honor. So, but all that is to say, even though you have all these little things, which I think would hurt its value, especially like on a Bring a Trailer, where an auction website, where you're going to have people really picking over it, I think actually this is sort of a perfect Aerostar to get into. Just anywhere around here, finding something all-wheel drive is going to be difficult. There was a white one. I don't know if I ever did an episode. I don't think I ever did. Maybe I can find the listing and do it. And then someone posted in an Aerostar group, and I congratulated them because they were saying that it's one of the few, 4-wheel drive Aerostars left in like upstate New York specifically, but in the Northeast generally. So right there, you're going to have to go across the country. And nowadays, it's like, I'll fly out, buy the van and drive it back, and I'll get a really nice one. I'll spend like, $7,000 on it. But then to fly across the country now, and fuel prices, you're getting, 16 miles to the gallon, 18, 20 if you're lucky on the highway. You're going to spend a couple $1,000s, not to mention a week of your time. If you work, that's another, just driving a car across country to get it back home used to be like sort of it's kind of an economical thing, and now it's like it's a major expense. You might spend as much as you spend on the vehicle just getting it back home. So to find one in this nice quality in this area is really sort of a boon. And so I do think, like, because the interior is nice, the exterior, all this stuff, little stuff with the bumper. I mean, then we're just lucky again. We're lucky that the bumpers are intact at all. Like, even on my red 1990, I thought the bumpers were salvageable, and they probably are salvageable, but it's going to take a lot of work. This is like a very minor thing in the grand scheme of things. The structural integrity is still there, so you can like patch it. When these start to fall apart, these little sort of wire inserts, this little like coping here, is very difficult to sort of get to sit right, and it's not like you can just like fill them with foam and sand them down. There's kind of a lot of different there's like sort of a honeycomb grid pattern inside there, and it's just a really difficult thing to put back together. And of course, we all know Aerostar bumpers are total unobtainium, so like it's a real, and it totally changes the look of the vehicle. Like, I'm all for like sort of a Frankenstein Frankenstein's monster Aerostar. We got crazy bumper situations going on, but I do think the stock look of and I'm all for modding Aerostars, different wheels and that, but those bumpers are kind of like really do make it look like an Aerostar. They complete the shape and the profile of the vehicle, and to not have them on there. So what I'm getting at here is I think like I would still try to negotiate the price of this Aerostar. But for the miles, for the color, I think all this little stuff could be dealt with, and you could probably buff out. You don't think you'd respray this vehicle, just like kind of buff everything out. Put some, these hubcaps are obviously aftermarket. Put some like either steelies on or get some nice alloy wheels. I've really been, the Mustang wheels fit. Lincoln Mark 7 wheels fit. I think some Grand Marquis and Crown Vic wheels fit. There's like it's like a 5x4.5. So there's quite a few, OEM, not model specific, but still like FOMOCO wheels that will fit on Aerostars. And those in the 90s, those Crown Vics and those Lincolns, they had like that BBS style wheel that was really attractive. And the Mustang tri-spoke wheels, like, man, Ford in the 90s just had some absolute bangers in terms of factory OEM wheels. The Aerostar, there's some alloys that I like. I don't dislike any of the alloys on the Aerostar, but it's too bad they never made like a factory like honeycomb style. Even the Town and Countries from Chrysler, I believe, had that, because Jeep had those honeycomb style wheels, which allegedly will fit, but I think there's something going on with the bore size, because I bought a honeycombs and they didn't, set of honeycombs and they didn't fit. Maybe I did something wrong, but I didn't try to put them on myself. But the garage I go to, which I really like, said that they wouldn't fit. So be that as it may. Yeah, I mean, just a really, really nice Aerostar. It's easy to overlook something like this. I see it, I'm like, well, okay, it's all-wheel drive. That's cool. I don't love the paint scheme. I don't know. I sort of tend to like the monochromatic versions better. I'm not sure why. I like the novelty of the two-tone, but I guess I do like seeing the totality of the Aerostar in monochromatism. For me, it just like, I want to see that shape. But the more I look at this, the more I really like, I think I like the sandwich more than the two-tone. I like how that you have the top and the bottom, and that line really shows off that just the length of the vehicle and the overall profile of it, and it gives you this nice little inflection point to consider sort of the simplicity of the design, and yet it does show off this sort of like long arcing. One of the few true curves in the Aerostar is this long arcing line. And this little swoop in the paint is kind of cute. It's like the one thing that it was kind of a workaround, like it probably made, and I think I've seen Aerostars like this where the paint scheme will follow this line and the hood will actually remain the color of the rest of the top and the bottom. So it is funny that they decided to keep the hood, the red color, the secondary color. But you can sleep on an Aerostar like this and you can say, oh, well, it's like, it's got some damage on it. It's the bumpers are a little janky. Like maybe you love that. Maybe you love this two-tone. I tend to go also, I like the gray interior, but with the piping on it, I kind of like the gold interior. So I keep finding these reasons to think that it's not the perfect Aerostar, for me, because I'm always obsessed with, I'm always trying to I'm always in my brain thinking of a way how I could actually buy this. Even though I have no business buying, I have like so many projects that I need to get to before I would buy another one. But I've always wanted an all-wheel drive one. But then the more I think about something like this, it's like, wow, it really has it has all the things that that are kind of deal breakers. It has none of, the bumpers. Just mechanically, it's low mileage. It seems sound. It's not completely rusted out. It's even had rust repaired onto it. All the things that are maybe wrong with this Aerostar are all things that actually would be fairly simple to address and fix. And so for all those reasons, I think it's really grown on me, even just talking about it. This is a fantastic Aerostar. 93, cool year. I love 90. I don't know, for 90, something about 93. I love my green 93. I think it's like maybe it's when the Aerostar really came into its own, and it was kind of the pinnacle of Aerostardom, because I think 93, maybe 94 was sort of like the year that you could get everything. So it had gone through the interior modernization, right? It's now the second gen or facelifted interior. The exterior never really changed, but your headlights became flush, your grille changed a little bit, your bezels changed a little. Well, actually, your bezels didn't even really change. It was just the headlights within them. But 93, I think every option that was ever offered on an Aerostar, you could get all in the same year. I think you could still get a cargo, you could get a manual transmission, you could get an extended, you could get an all-wheel drive, 4-liter, 3-liter. I mean, you couldn't get the 2.3 4-cylinder, but that was only really a couple of years anyways. By 97, the manual transmission was gone. I'm not sure when the cargo left. The Sport you can get in 93. I think after 94, 95, the Sport went away. Now, maybe I have seen some 97 Sports. I could be wrong about that. But, in 86, 87, 88, I think the extended came around, 90. That's when the Eddie Bauers, the extended, the all-wheel drive came. But for the first couple of years, those weren't an option. And in the last couple of years, the manual transmission was an option. So 93 was sort of like, the world was your oyster and your Aerostar could be anything you wanted it to be. So it's kind of a cool year. It's right in the sort of the middle of the reign of the Aerostar. And obviously a 4-wheel drive extended two-tone was sort of like, the creme de la creme at the time. In 93, this was probably like a pretty loaded, I know that they did a leather interior. It is an XLT, so it's the top of the line trim. They did a leather interior on some Eddie Bauers, but it's very rare. I would like to know more about the leather interior because you hardly ever see it. But, power everything. It doesn't have like your trip computer up here. So I know that at some point they did a console up here. I'm not sure about those years, and I know they did a second gen digital dash. There was a first gen digital dash, and they did a second gen. The digital dash is still, it's so hard for me. It must have just been even though this is an XLT, it must have been another package, like an upgrade, or maybe it was only on Eddie Bauers. I am just a humble servant in this. There's so many people out there that know so much more about the Aerostars than I do. And I'm very grateful for those people who chime in and tell me all these things and actually take the time to watch this and answer these questions. I mean, it's really a gift. So Janky do Thanky. No captain's chairs, but you got your dual benches. This was the most common setup. And even the rear seats in great condition, all your carpeting in great condition. The other thing that I did notice that I didn't touch on was, when you look at this back hatch shot, this is another big thing too, is that this molding is all really tight and your headliner's in great condition. Now you do have a little dome light with, are those fans or is that just your dome light? Can't tell if it has there was like a rear climate control package, I think too. But all this is in, just fantastic condition. So the more I think about it, the more, a little staining here or whatever, this netting was sort of a little bit of a gimmick. I mean, I understand that it's cool. It's a really cool idea, but most of that netting, the elastic hasn't really held up. Yeah, I mean, I saw this pop up, and there haven't been a ton of Aerostars locally, and this popped up, and I was like, oh, I should do an episode on that, and finally I am. But I didn't rush out to be like, oh, I have to capture this. It doesn't have like some of the pageantry that some of these really unique Aerostars have, whether it's like a lowrider or an ice cream truck or something really cool where I could expand the definition of what an Aerostar could be. No, this is more of like the quintessence of what an Aerostar was in its most common form. Like, we praise the versatility, but just as a car, just as a people mover, 4-wheel drive in a minivan, so ahead of its time. And the fact that it was dual purpose, you could take the seats out and put sheets of plywood in, but then you could also fit 7 people in and drive them around. Like, it boggles my mind. I talk with people. There's still not really a great alternative to that. I mean, even the new Sienna all-wheel drive hybrids are awesome, but you're not even supposed to remove the 2 middle seats. It's like against the warranty to remove these seats, or they make it very hard to do. You have to like disconnect airbags and stuff. So that makes it not great as like a dual purpose vehicle. I love the Ford Excursion, but that's a big commitment, and your gas mileage is going to be pretty atrocious, especially you got the Gasser V10. So there's just like obviously a lot of big SUVs now, 3-row SUVs, you still can't fit a sheet of plywood in. Like there's just this. It's a box, but it's also angular. It's like an angular box, and and now there's a lot of these Sprinter vans, and those are all really cool. But a lot of those, like a Mercedes Metris, great sized vehicle, but you can't unless you get the passenger version, which significantly compromises your cargo ability. costs way more. I don't think it's rear wheel drive, not all wheel drive. Then you can't put like a back seat in if you got to put like a kid back there. So, I digress. If you're watching this program, I'm preaching to the choir, and but it's just this is sort of the quintessential Aerostar. I love the two-tone, that dark gray too. It's like that gunmetal gray with this sort of darkish red. Very 90s, very Bordeaux, but it's very classy in its own way, sophisticated in its own way. And it's got the bumpers intact, under 100,000 miles, great interior exterior combo, and wow. It really makes me want to go out and buy this Aerostar, which, you could say that about a lot of Aerostars, but this one's really grown on me. So a pleasure to be able to talk about this 1993 Ford Aerostar XLT minivan for $3,600 in Lake Ariel, Pennsylvania. This has been Year of the Aerostar, episode number 148. Someday I'll actually, I'm here, but someday I'll actually respond to your comments. I do apologize that I've gone sort of off. I was going to say maybe if I reach 2,000 subscribers, which is so ridiculous to say, but it's like there's a certain point where I can't respond to every comment, like if I continue to gain subscribers, like I hate playing inside baseball on YouTube, but there's just there's a law at some point you can't respond to every single one, right? But so far I've been trying to do that. So I'll try to continue to do that because I really do appreciate each and every comment. It's, again, just some strange person with strange proclivities talking about my, I hate to use the word special interest, but maybe that's what it is. The Ford Aerostar. And the fact that there's other people going along for the ride is just, truly a blessing. So thank you very much. I'll stop waxing on now. But boy, what a great Aerostar, huh? That is nice. Makes you want to go out and buy a Ford Aerostar. I will give you some sort of, we'll do a My Janky Life soon. I actually have been driving my green one a little bit, which has been great, even though it's out of date for inspection. But, we try to practice what we preach here on Janky AF. And with that, this has been Year of the Aerostar here on Janky AF. We'll have another one coming for you very soon. And until then, Janky do Thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.